Hi everybody, welcome to another YouTube video, and today we're talking about something a little different but very applicable to the upcoming holiday season where our diet is playing a huge role in how we feel. And today we're going to actually be diving into gallbladder stones, gallbladder sludge, and why someone has issues digesting fat and having hormonal imbalances when their gallbladder is involved. So let's dive in. What is the gallbladder? The gallbladder is actually an organ that has very close association to the liver. It stores something called bile. Now we need bile. Think of bile like dish soap. Think of it as Mrs. Meyer's dish soap, where really greasy dish, we put that dish underneath the sink. We need Mrs. Meyer's to emulsify the fat or basically process the fat. Without proper bile emulsification, problems arise with our hormone systems, with our ability to digest food, with pain, with all of the things that have to do with bowel movements. So the gallbladder's function is actually doing multiple things, one of which is digestion, but another important factor is hormone balance. And I really want to talk about the gallbladder from a non-conventional standpoint of if someone's having gallbladder issues, could it potentially be a culprit behind infertility? The answer is absolutely. If someone's having gallbladder issues, could it be the culprit behind inability to lose weight? Absolutely. If someone's having gallbladder issues, you probably know what I'm going to say. Could it be the reason that they're having difficulty digesting fat? Yes. So the gallbladder, although it doesn't seem like it has a lot of function, its job is to hold bile, and bile is produced in the liver. The biliary system, the liver, gallbladder, is so important for our health for so many reasons outside of just food. But let's dive in and talk a little bit about the food component. So we have a gallbladder, and it lives kind of in our right upper quadrant, tucked underneath the rib cage. And the purpose, like I said, of the gallbladder is to emulsify fat or process fat. When the gallbladder can't do that, it actually causes problems with our ability to digest food. Fatty foods, things like avocados and legumes and nuts and sometimes even vegetables. So we do need the gallbladder in top shape because it does something for us. Now, could you in theory live without a gallbladder? Absolutely. The liver will kick in, the liver will do the job of the gallbladder, and there are many people that actually have had their gallbladder removed. But typically, if you ask someone that's had their gallbladder removed, if they've had difficulty conceiving, if they've had difficulty with digestive issues, the answer is yes and yes for those very reasons. So really, the gallbladder holds the bile, and then the bile is basically moved and used to support digesting fat. If we don't have this happen and we're not processing our fat, all sorts of problems can arise because fat is the precursor to making cholesterol, and cholesterol is the precursor to making our hormone system. So oftentimes I find people that might come to see me because they're not able to get pregnant, they're having difficulties with weight loss, they're having something called bile reflux where they're having pain, almost like acid reflux, but it's because of their bile, their inability to produce enough or secrete enough bile. And now they're having heartburn, they're having chronic bloating, they're having tightness and difficulty digesting their food, and sometimes weight gain. So yes, the gallbladder is very involved, like I said, with nutrition, absorbing fats. You need to be able to absorb fat and digest fat. Now, having fat in your body doesn't make you fat. I know that when I work with a lot of my patients that are coming in to see me for nutrition consultation and support with body composition and changing their body weight, their kind of 80s and 90s science is that fat makes you fat, and that is the biggest misconception ever. Fat does not make you fat. It's the combination of fat, protein, and carb together, and the way they all play with each other that creates weight gain. So I just wanted to share that with you guys that, from a digestive standpoint, we need our gallbladder. And yes, you can live without your gallbladder. Your liver will take up the function, but it does put more strain on the liver. Okay, so there are some instances where people have said, I have sludge in my gallbladder. What that really means is that the gallbladder is having not really stone production, but there's stuff in the gallbladder. Sludge is in there, so it's kind of blocked or backed up, and that can cause problems, namely with fertility. So if you're dealing with a gallbladder issue, if you're dealing with any type of cholangitis, which is basically inflammation of the bile ducts, if you're dealing with anything that's involved with inflammation of the gallbladder, whether stones and sludge, acute cholecystitis, all of those things have to do with irritation and inflammation, even if you're not aware of it. So for example, some people say, I don't know if my gallbladder is processing, but they are having difficulty digesting certain food groups, and not just fatty foods. So classically speaking, the gallbladder is known to digest fat. Foods that might create irritation for us could be avocados, fatty foods, clarified butter, things that are higher fat egg yolks, fatty meats, bacon. Those are the types of things that contain a little bit more fat content. That's not the only thing that causes the biliary tract to contract from a food perspective. So things like legumes, so a lot of times beans, garbanzo beans, kidney beans, legumes in general, even onions, peppers, red peppers, bell peppers, those things actually have constituents in them that create gallbladder issues as well. So there are some things from a food perspective that we want to make sure that are not coming in that are irritating your gallbladder. So if you have stones, if you have sludge, we really want to take a holistic approach to figuring out why, and then how do we emulsify and help you to do that so that we can basically get rid of your sludge and your stones. Can you do that? Yes, you can absolutely do that. I have people that have come in to see me and they're like, I have a gallbladder surgery coming up. I don't know if this is the right move or not. I was born with this organ. I feel I need it. Can you help me? The answer is yes. There's ways to emulsify the fat. There's ways to support fat. There's different types of enzymes that can help eat the fat, different types of things that will support the gallbladder and the liver in general, because they're connected. So when I say liver and gallbladder, think of them together. They're buddies. The liver and the gallbladder are buddies. Now, from an infertility perspective, what can happen is that if you're not digesting your fat, you're not making hormones fully. So the way that we produce all sex hormones, things like testosterone, free and total versions, things like dihydrotestosterone, free and total versions, even things like estrogen, all three derivatives of estrogen, these are all things that actually are going to be made from a parent hormone called pregnenolone. So pregnenolone is a molecule that helps us to make sex hormones, like the ones I just shared, the ones we all have heard about. Well, pregnenolone actually comes from cholesterol, which is a 22 carbon molecule. So we basically produce hormones from cholesterol. And where do we produce cholesterol? 1.5 liters of our cholesterol production comes from our liver. 1.5 liters. 1.5 liters. That's a lot of cholesterol. We also produce cholesterol from our gut bacteria. People that are dealing with high cholesterol, sometimes they think it's the fatty food that they're eating. That could be true. It's typically not fat, it's carbohydrate intake. It's typically the load of carbohydrates is too high, creating the liver to overproduce cholesterol and the gut bacteria to synthesize bad bacteria that produce cholesterol products. But I don't want to talk really too much about that right now, but I just want to go back to the point of hormones for the sake of this, because if you're not able to basically have the gallbladder and the liver able to have healthy cholesterol production, or maybe you're making just crappy quality cholesterol, it will indirectly affect your hormones and your fertility. And that could even be low levels of cholesterol. So sometimes when I'm looking at lab work, people will come in, or we're looking at their lab work from labs that they've had tested, especially when you're in the fertility realm, and their cholesterol is very low. There's a lot of times that women are coming in and their cholesterol is 100, 120. It's way too low. And why that matters is because, remember, cholesterol is the parent hormone to be able to produce our sex hormones. And if we're not producing enough of it, we typically don't have enough hormones surging through our body. And the hormonal systems are governed by the pituitary gland, both anterior and posterior pituitary gland, but they do need a little bit of a jump start from the liver and the gallbladder, because as we produce hormones from our pituitary gland, they travel to target tissue. Even like the ovaries. The ovaries can produce hormones as well under the master gland, the pituitary gland, but those hormones are going to be filtered and processed through the liver. The point of this story is that if you're dealing with issues with your gallbladder and you're having problems with fertility, there's a very strong connection there. So I just really want to hone in on that because it's not something I think that's talked about from a conventional standpoint. Hormonal issues are a huge factor that liver and gallbladder play a role in. Like I said, as is digestive capacity. So we do need to be able to process through lipase production and some of the cells that we need to digest our fat. That comes from the ability to have good, healthy liver health, good, healthy gallbladder health. If there's stones, if the gallbladder's been removed, if we're having bile reflux and all these digestive issues, we're not able to conceive, definitely something is going on from a liver gallbladder perspective. So I just wanted to share that stuff with you guys. And then also from a weight loss perspective, that imagine we're not able to process our fat. Well, now we're eating fat, but we're really not processing it. It's just stored or it's sitting there. That's another thing that can happen when someone's dealing with gallbladder issues, is that their ability to absorb and process is decreased because their biliary system is just not functioning. So they're having difficulty digesting fatty foods. A lot of times we do feel it. We do feel pain in the upper right quadrant. We feel maybe a little bit of tightness or constriction if there's irritation to the gallbladder. It can refer pain to the mid-back, typically like, I wouldn't say mid-back, but like kind of below the scapula area. So that's another thing that can happen too, because remember, all of the organs have innervation from the spinal cord. So the spinal cord gives nerves or gives neurology input to a lot of the organs. And so there's something called a visceral somatic reflex. It just means that when my organs are under a lot of stress, that means that we can actually have physical pain in our body. Back pain is one of those things. So we might be saying, I have back pain, I have this tightness that's going on between my scapula, between my shoulder blade. What could it be? Of course, it could absolutely be musculoskeletal. It could be tech neck. We're all sitting at home now. We're all using our bodies totally not how they're meant to be used. We're more stagnant. We're not as active with everything going on. Absolutely, there could be a musculoskeletal component to it, but there could be an organ component as well, because when organs are irritated, when organs are inflamed, we actually could have input into our spinal cord and into our muscles and our skeleton. Typically, the liver and the gallbladder do refer to the right shoulder. So when someone's having right shoulder issues, we could kind of connect the dots where people might have said, I have rotator cuff issues with my right shoulder. I've torn my labrum. I have issues with tracking, or my shoulder joint pops out of the socket frequently, or I have a lot of pain in my upper trapezius area or even into the arm. Those things could actually be true, that there is musculoskeletal damage, but what also could be true is that it had been exacerbated by having problems with the organs, namely the liver and gallbladder, because the referral pattern is of that nature. So pain with the liver and the gallbladder typically refer pain to our right shoulder blade. So I'm not saying that that's the full component of why pain started. Could a problem in those regions be exacerbating an already preconceived problem? Totally. That's typically the case. So I've actually worked with people that have a lot of problems from a musculoskeletal point, and I'm thinking, this is not musculoskeletal. There's something else going on here. Usually it's a little bit of both. So I just wanted to share that as well, that if you're having problems with weight gain, if you're having problems with fertility, if you're having a lot of digestive issues, especially bowel movement. So the way we actually create stool has to do with our organs and how they're functioning. And I know a lot of people just think, well, what I ate, it comes out of me. So what I put in comes out of me, right? Like it's as simple as that. No. When you're able to actually create stool, what's happening is, how is the integrity of my organs? Meaning, am I having good filtration? Is my liver and gallbladder processing? Is my pancreas producing enough insulin to digest glucose? Am I getting enough stuff from a nutritional standpoint? That's step one. But step two is, am I actually able to tolerate all of what I'm putting in from an organ standpoint? And sometimes people are not. They might have issues with their organs, and that is actually a problem to their liver and their gallbladder. or to their bowel movements, I should say. And we can look at that as maybe there's something going on with their liver and their gallbladder. So, stool is a function of internal health from an organ standpoint. How you're able to produce stool, whether you're constipated or having diarrhea, comes from the ability of the organs to process, especially the liver gallbladder. So there's some compounds, stercobilinogen, there's basically compounds that we produce in our liver that have to be produced and then filtered and liberated and excreted to help us have good, healthy bowel movements. So whenever we talk about how's your gut health, it actually means what I'm thinking as the provider is, how are your organs processing things? You might be thinking, oh, well, I ate something bad. So of course it's true. When you eat off, you will feel that from a digestive standpoint. But even if you're eating good quality food, sometimes the body's still not responding. Another important factor is thyroid conditions and thyroid health. So if someone's dealing with Hashimoto's thyroiditis or any type of low thyroid production, whether that's hypothyroidism, interestingly enough, although we produce thyroid hormone in our neck, we actually move it into our liver, and that's where it's converted into a more user-friendly version of the hormone that we need of the thyroid hormones. We produce 4 different types of thyroid hormones. We use really only 2 of them. Actually, we use like 1.5 of them. But the conversion of thyroid hormone happens in our liver. And so if you're having issues with your thyroid, you might also want to check to see what's the integrity of my liver. How is my liver processing? Am I having fatty liver issues? Am I having gallbladder stones and sludge? Am I having bile reflux? Are my bowels not consistent? These are all things that are going to affect your health in general. And so whenever I'm working with any patients that are dealing with thyroid issues, one of the things that we want to check to see is what's the integrity of their liver. And there are some really good compounds and formulas. I have to congratulate 58 women that have done, actually I should say 58 women and men, there was a few men in there that have completed their 7-day liver cleanse with me and have had amazing results with that. But I really want to just share with you that the compounds that we use to cleanse the liver are really powerful and potent. And whenever you're working with the liver, you do have to be a little bit careful, because think of the liver and gallbladder as holding toxic waste. So now we're going to open up. Imagine that we're in this room right now and I'm toxic waste and the tree is toxic waste. Well, we're going to just open everything up. And so we're liberating all of that stuff into the bloodstream. We could potentially feel it. So there is a way to support the liver kind of in a stepwise fashion, but liver cleanses are great. I'm not really big into words like detox or cleanse. It's really a little gimmicky. I'm not into anything that's not long-term sustainable, but the liver cleanse really does help to support the liver and the gallbladder and really clean things up. So if that's something you've never done, connect with me. I would be happy to walk you through how we can support your liver, gallbladder, whether it's I'm having issues with my thyroid, whether it's I'm having issues with my bowel movements, any of the things that we just spoke about from a biliary perspective. Anything skin related, skin rashes. So any type of autoimmune condition or skin issues are always connected to the liver, because the liver and the gallbladder, they are not only digestive in nature, but they're also immune in nature. So the liver is actually the largest lymphatic organ. It's part of the immune system, part of what's called the lymphatic system, which is the waste. It's part of the waste system. So there again, why is it important that I don't have sludge or stones, or that I don't have a non-alcoholic fatty liver disease brewing in the background? Because all of it's affecting your immune system, your ability to produce and get rid of waste, and really all the things that have to do with your health. I hope that you guys found some value and are really starting to say, wait a second, I need to focus on my liver, focus on my gallbladder, get them in shape. And if you're not sure how to do that, please connect with me. I'd be happy to walk you through what that might look like and to support you. But don't neglect the liver and the gallbladder, because they are massive organs when it comes to healing autoimmune conditions, thyroid dysfunction, digestive issues, all of the things. Any questions, guys, leave them down below, and I'll see you in the next video.